Better. And that's
Good
just
adjustment.
That's about perfect. Got a
Yes.
little extra light over here on me.
That's helping an awful lot. I can just tell. People will be able to tell a radical difference.
Well, it seems to be lighting you up more than it's lighting me up right now. That's
Well, there's more of me to light up.
no, don't start that, Roger. You're fine just the way you are. Hey, welcome to the Inglorious Pastords, Season 7.
I'm Roger. This is my brother, Bruce.
I was going to say that after I said episode 2.
Well, I wanted to interrupt you because that's a Martin thing.
Hey, do you ever find yourself when you're writing something or typing something that you want to remember how to spell it, so you say it sort of phonetically correct, episode-y, envelope-y?
Well, I've never really had trouble spelling episode.
I'll do that sometimes, episode-y, in my mind. So I'm just like, this is how to, as I'm typing along. Maybe you're just better with spelling than I
am. Well, with some words, yes, like bake, bread. These are, so I don't have to go bread.
Well, where it started with me, I realized, was the word orangutan.
Okay.
I say it in my head, orangutan. Because otherwise I'll never be able to spell orangutan.
I do the same thing with lieutenant, lieutenant.
Lieutenant. I do the same thing with whore's divorce. Really? Where did anyone come up with? How is that even close to hors d'oeuvres? I don't even understand.
Why are we?
And for years I thought it was hors d'oeuvres with a B. Hors d'oeuvres. Bruce's spelling challenges continue.
Well, it is funny where you get even into adulthood and realize for decades, some of you have a dawning moment. I've been saying that
wrong for years. Fortunately, I mumble just a hair. So people, and have you ever noticed that if you're not sure of the pronunciation, you will mumble just a hair?
Of course.
Orders. What did you say? Orders. Yeah. Well, was that with a V or a B? Well, it's actually an OERVES.
Do you do that?
Whatever that, I mean,
you do that sometimes with people's names. Don't remember it's this or this, and you do a kind of an in-betweener.
I don't know that I've done a tweener. That's interesting.
Or do you mumble something?
Hey, Cindy Tom.
All these things we do to cover our humanness. We forget names.
No, and I'm so much
misspell, we mispronounce.
I'm so much better now. I'm still not perfect on this, but I'm so much better when I see someone in the store and I just can't remember their name, but I know their face, and I'm like, forgive me. What's your name again? Or I've totally forgotten your name. Or
what's really tough with that is when you know you've done that the last 3 times you've seen them.
That's when, I have a maximum 2 times you can do that. If it's the 3rd time, you go, hey, what's up? You just act very familial. Everything's good. You don't even give them the, hey, what's up, dude or gal. You just, hey, what's up? Yeah, good to see you. Sure. How old are the kids? You have none. I was checking to make sure that you knew that you didn't have.
And what do you do again?
Oh, no. No. You never. Expecting what? I did ask that question one time years ago at Rocket City. I was like, when are you expecting? A woman said to me, literally, she said, expecting what? And I was like, there is no way out. There is. Well, the return of Jesus. When are you expecting? Because
a great pastoral deflection.
It's going to be unexpected. That's what I want you to know. You're not going to be expecting it.
I was just testing you.
So,
do you know when he's coming back?
Right. And you were testing me with expecting what to see, did I know what we're expecting? So I do know what we're not expecting for darn sure, which is a baby.
Pastoral deflection.
I got that part right. So yeah, there's that.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever done that one.
Hey, note to listeners and to Roger at the same time.
Oh, no. Wait, we're all hearing this together?
Well, our thing is it's unscripted. It's live. We don't talk ahead of time.
Tell me, Bruce. Tell me what's going on.
Next week, we're doing the Inglorious Pastords from New Smyrna Beach, Florida, with special guest Marie, and we're hoping we can dial you in somehow. So
Roger's being replaced.
No, here's the plan, because I have done this before, and I'm getting good at it now. I don't know how YouTube Live works and Facebook Live and all that when you do 2 people and how to get the audio and all that. But I do know that I can do that with Zoom. Because I can record you when you're speaking.
Zoom.
I gotta zoom. Hey
Come
there,
on,
give it a try. We're gonna tell you just why. We're gonna teach you to fly high. Come on and zoom. Come on and zoom, zoom, zoom. That was a 70s thing, I think.
That was a long time ago. It's
That
a shame
like
Zoom didn't pick up on that.
Electric Company, Sesame Street, The Monkees, and Zoom.
And that double-decker bus show we watched.
Yes, the double-decker London bus. So we're going to zoom from the condo in Florida. We'll have Marie and I on one screen. We'll have you on another screen. And
that's because I will be in Huntsville, Alabama, while you are partying on the beach.
we're going to be having deep theological discussions on the beach and getting work done. This is a
working vacation.
This is the working vacation. This is the workation.
What? That's so American. Working vacation. Why do we ruin the term vacation?
Roger, listen, if you had to fill out 40-page permits for 4 different national forest systems and 2 national parks, okay, and they're due by October 30th, would you rather do that on the beach in Florida or holed up in your little office at home?
I think it's the wrong question, Bob.
Nope, I think it's the right question. I would rather do that.
I'm going to ruin my vacation by filling out the forms. And then when I get back to my office where I have no beach view, what the heck am I going to do?
Well, that's where I do counseling, coaching, and then I have 17 trips to Walls of Jericho. It's a very busy, busy season. Very busy.
Busy man that's got to turn a vacation into productive work time. This is an intervention. You've got to stop it.
You make that sound like such a bad thing.
How did we get to? It's like at some point when we started buying water, like we could get it free from the tap. But now a vacation, a working vacation.
It's not actually free. You got a little thing on your bill that says water. So it's a penny, maybe less. But yes, you are paying for it. Yeah, that whole bottled water thing, I don't know. I do know this, that sometimes life just says you got to do a little more on vacation than you wanted to. And I'm okay with that.
Have you ever heard a word called boundaries? Saying no, learning to say no.
I teach it every day. What are you talking about?
Wait, what about living it?
Well, in my boundaries, there's a teeny tiny bit of work that you're able to do on vacation. That's on my playing field. In fact, doing work in Florida is like playing. I'm going to play with some national forest permits next week. It's going to be great fun.
Well, you can never say anything to Marlena ever again about working on vacation.
Nope. She's going to be working on her vacation too. So, and I'm sure
it's going to be
Mark and Wendy will be selling some houses. Marie's probably going to be doing seminary work. We're actually it's a workation for all of us. It's going to be great fun.
So you're just working in a different location. Is that what vacations have become? We just work in a different location with a better view.
Mm-hmm.
I think
you got a problem with that?
Something feels wrong about that.
No, I like it.
Because I like sitting and just reading something I want to read. It's not anything I have to do. I think about vacation being just the things I want to do and relax, and it's just...
Oh, there's going to be plenty of relaxation and bocce and psych ball and whatnot.
All right. Okay, work away on your workation. I just hope it doesn't infect me.
Let's just talk about that for a minute. So I don't find any biblical, grounds for retirement per se. I don't know that I find biblical grounds for a complete week absent of work, other than actually that's not true. There's all sorts of feasts in the Old Testament. They'd take 8 days.
And they were days, right?
Yeah, that was like a week of nothing but eating. But they had to cook the food, which is work. And on one of them, the tabernacles, they had to build tents. They were building shelters. That's a working vacation. That's a working feast right there.
No, and you're making the point that, you can't make this hard and fast,
right?
That you can't somehow ever work on a vacation as if there's some kind of rule. But I do wonder at some point in the larger culture, if we've gotten a shift
taking us out of the equation.
Well, if I'm
it's good. I like the larger culture.
Well, if I even just take it to Sabbath,
Yeah.
which is the genius and brilliance of God trying to save us with Sabbath of take a break,
Right.
take a rest. There are things that happen in downtime. There are things that happen when my mind is clear. They're very important kinds of things that happen. But I see, even with that, for me, still to this day, it's very hard to go one day without trying to be productive,
without doing some work,
without trying to. And again, this isn't, and my point isn't here getting real fine about can you cook on a Sabbath? It's the larger thing about can you stop the productivity monster, the have to be getting things done. So I kid you a bit.
Oh, excuse me.
But in the larger culture, I wonder if either two things. I've talked to some people who just can't seem to ever take a break.
Right.
And then others, okay, well, I'll take a break, but I'm on call the whole time, or I'm whatever. So it's more the question of when does, and this with so many things, when does a good thing get out of balance? Work is a gift from God.
Sure.
You filling out reports, that's not a bad thing. These are me working at eBay, someone working a field in Ethiopia, coffee in Honduras. It's good, it's healthy, but where does work get out of balance? Where does that, and that's the thing, it just seems like we have a hard time. What was the name of that one book a couple decades ago?
The Rest of God?
When I relax, I feel guilty.
Oh, okay.
It was just
that's interesting.
Just sort of addressing this thing where now it's almost as if, because maybe part of our sense of value is tied to work, our sense of significance. If I'm not doing something, I don't
sense of revenue.
Well, yes.
I'm just being pragmatic here. Okay. Roger's tying into all these deeper philosophic and theological issues.
But every now and then,
I'm just talking about paying bills.
People have more than enough to cover their bills.
Right.
And they're still working late at the office.
And Solomon talked about that. The person that just works and works and works and works
Yes.
and works and works and works. He said, better, what did he say? Better one handful with peace than two handfuls with basically conflict. Man, I need to look that up. It was a beautiful thing. But that's that thing of there's a place for work and there's a place for play.
Well, and he highlighted, in fact, this is one of the things he highlights there, the value and the blessing and
of
the
work.
gift
Right.
of work.
But also the blessing of rest and play and enjoying.
And saying no, where I just see, I think one of the sobering things is to see how often, well, invariably, an obsession with work, what does it undercut? Almost always relationships.
Yeah.
How many kids will look back, dad or mom they just weren't there because they were working all the time. And I'm not speaking, some of them could be a single parent situation and literally they had no, if the family was going to survive financially, it had to happen.
Sure.
But those times where I'm deciding work or time with my kids, work or time with my spouse. And it's just amazing to me how strong the pull of work, maybe slash money, slash significance, how strong a pull that is.
Not only that, but yeah. And I was thinking, because we had this discussion at our house last Sunday with Marie. We were just talking about work and rest and vacation and how much time off. And, the older I get, it's more important to me to have time off work than it is to make a lot of money working. So I'd much rather have weeks of time off that I'm in control of versus working all the time. Like sometimes we were talking about how much, like even in your work setting, how much time should you ask off from your employer, or if you're negotiating a new contract, how much and I said, you realize in Europe, in the European Union, it's a mandatory 4 weeks off a year plus 15 paid holidays, which is over 6. That's basically 7 weeks. 15 days. Yeah. 15 days paid holidays. That's 7 weeks of holiday. And that's normal to them. I remember playing golf with a guy years ago in Florida who was on holiday from across the
Right.
pond, using his word. Were you with me playing with this guy?
I'm trying to remember, because I remember having conversations with someone.
But he was like from Scotland, and he said, yeah, we have to take off 6 weeks a year. So he said, I'm just taking a couple of weeks here in the States. And I was like, I remember being just shocked by that. I'm like, 6 weeks? Are you kidding? I remember trying to negotiate 3 weeks with an employer was a big deal, because I'm like, well, we do 2 weeks vacation.
I think the same thing is in Australia, because I think that's where I end up having a conversation. Just people incredulous at the idea. Now you think about the comedy of this, especially for people living in countries where existence requires survival survives. You have to work 7 days a week, whatever. But they were incredulous. What? You only take two weeks off? You only get 2 weeks? And I remember talking to somebody. Oh yeah, we get nearly 2 months off.
Yeah.
And they were incredulous.
Yes.
It's just funny that we would take so little time off. You only get that.
Right. So this is an interesting thing, because now when I hear like 2 weeks vacation, I'm just like, that sounds awful. I mean, I can't. And some of that's my temperament. The idea that I only had 2 weeks a year that I could look forward to not working, I'm like, because even as I'm planning my calendar for next year, I typically have about 4 weeks that are off. I mean, that I don't have to do anything. So, I love that each of those kind of vacations is different. The one that we do in May typically is friends and family, big, and next year, we'll be with our family. And then we got some of our friends and their family there. The October one that we're doing every year now is typically just friends and no kids, which for some of you'll for some of you know why that's important. It's just, there's no kids or grandkids. You're just there with friends. Then Marlene and I are getting into this rhythm of, in the first quarter, where we do a week just for ourselves. So like next year, we're wanting to go to the Grand Canyon.
Right.
And I'm thinking, Marlene doesn't listen to this, so this is great. Instead of flying, I'm thinking about taking Amtrak, because that just sounds fun.
Yes,
doesn't train that sound, does. Just so get one of those sleeping cars and just, I don't have to drive. We don't have to do airport stuff.
I've
never done it.
I don't know, fantasized about that. That just kind of
I've been on Amtrak once in California when we were getting a ride from Sacramento to Fresno.
Okay.
Because that was where we were going to be shuttled out to our trailhead. And it was just cool, because they've got like dining cars. They got a little bar car, which is hilarious. They've got, so
how much time
we spent a little time in the bar car. I'm going to be honest, lay it out there. But we weren't in a sleeping car, but even in the regular cars, it was super comfortable. Big, what are they, booths that you're sitting in. So you're facing each other. You got a table in between. And it was so it's not like a plane where you're sitting in these seats and everyone's facing forward. When I think about that, it makes me wonder, why do we do church like that? It's like the most awkward way to do like anything in the world. But on the Amtrak, we had friends sitting across and we're on this side. It was just great. So I'm thinking I'm going to surprise her with a little Amtrak trip. And it's probably going to take, I don't know, 40 hours to get to Arizona or wherever the Grand Canyon is. Is that in Arizona? I think it is.
Yes.
Okay. But believe it or not, that's been on my bucket list for years and I've never done it.
Okay.
So all that to say, I am a person that I have to look forward to these Sabbaths, these festivals. Do you remember in the Old Testament how many weeks they had to take off for festivals? There's at least 3. I know there was tabernacles, there was first fruits, horse Passover. There might have been one more.
Yeah, my only recollection was the dawning realization at some point, these weren't just a one-day event, or when something was
No, think Woodstock. Everyone's setting up tents out in the back 40.
Right.
Which is just cool.
Well, and what I love, there's even that value of community, feasting.
Yes, eating together.
And God calls us to live in that fascinating tension between, of, yes, there's work, and there's duty, there are things that need to be done, there are things that have to be done, but there's a value. It's not just, this is what I love, when God when he thought of eating, it wasn't just something you were going to need to survive, because it is that, but woven into that, this was going to be a joy experience. This was going to be so taste and smell, aroma, and so coffees and wines and all of these things.
Do you think they had coffee in those days? I know they had teas. What a sad thing if they didn't have coffee.
I have no idea though, but my understanding is that, I know we might have disagreed on this or heard different stories about where coffee was first discovered. I thought it was Ethiopia. I think you might have heard a South American country,
yeah.
But if it was Ethiopia,
Africa sounds right, because Arabica and all that would be
right.
very.
So, how long ago that was, or
yeah,
I don't know, but I don't want to blow by. For me, that even speaks to the value of vacation where it's possible. And again, my heart goes out. You have people, we've got friends in Jito, Ethiopia, where we, by the grace of God, been able to visit it and know that so much of life is survival. So, the idea of vacation there, I think, is a rather foreign concept. Although the idea of enjoying,
or the idea of siesta.
So, see, one thing's very big there is, what do they call it? The coffee celebration? Coffee, what is it? But it's
like tea time in the old Britain days.
It is, and it's a pause. It's communal.
It's a pause for community,
right?
And sipping something.
So even in this particular, it's being very poor, still the value.
I'm going to start the Bourbon Hour. All right, we stop everything we're doing. No, and I'm having fun, but there is something. Think about that. Even in the middle of a day, stopping work to the siesta nap, or stopping work to, we're gonna have a cup of tea now. It's just interesting, and that whole, there is a unique American productivity thing that can be a little disconcerting. Yeah, where we have a hard time stopping.
And even what you're saying, the value maybe of being able to stop in the middle of a workday. I was listening the other day to a podcast about white space, and this gal was talking about how critical, so we're just not made, which is so typical in our kind of typical American workplace, meeting after meeting after meeting after meeting, and expecting, I'm just gonna have this energy and this productivity. If you're not having, she was really saying, yes, the value of a 10-minute nap, just what it does for you in ways that you don't imagine. So I think sometimes we think about, thank God it's Friday, so I'm gonna bust my butt. I'm gonna work Monday through Friday, 10, 11-hour days, but I got the weekend, baby. But even that, where there aren't the mini breaks, just the ability to say no in the middle of I don't have to go nonstop. I don't have to try and be Superman or Superwoman.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting you said that, because like yesterday, was my Tuesdays are my long days in counseling, so I had 8 appointments yesterday. So it was just back to back to back. But I've put a 30-minute buffer in between all of my appointments now. But I took 2 15-minute naps yesterday.
Okay,
and it helped me stay rested, focused, solid. Because you asked me when you came in my office this morning, you're like, "Hey, are you tired today?" Because and I'm like, I'm really not.
Yeah,
it was interesting, but I did take, and it's one thing I love about the Bluton. I literally can just lay down for 15 minutes, take the Bluton. It's a blue futon we're sitting on.
Yeah.
I take a nap
now.
Come back,
I just want to show people how we can do this. We can just nap, right? In other words, we don't have to be driven by this podcast.
Yeah, that's great. That's very helpful. I know. I don't.
No,
nope. I don't know where to go with that, actually.
You said something, though.
The Bourbon Hour. You want to pick up on that?
No, I want to go back to.
Okay, sorry.
No, this is important because I know you took a step. You didn't always have a 30-minute buffer between
you. I used to have 0 buffer. It was awful.
Now, this is important because I want to apply. When you said that, you kind of just said that quickly. But this is a mark of growth with you because
I'm growing as a person.
Well, no, seriously.
Yeah.
Where you were doing back-to-back appointments to make the decision, and that's not a small one. In other words, your decision was going to cost you some dollars.
Sure.
It was, the more we squeeze in, the more, I get done. But the decision literally to have a half an hour appointment and then a half an hour break, half an hour appointment.
It's actually an hour appointment, then a half hour break.
Okay, half an hour. Okay.
Yeah.
But the wisdom of that, I mean, you're practicing what we're talking about. I just think you're living it. It's not just, okay, this.
Yeah.
And what has the difference been for you with that? What did that change? Survival.
Well, I can take naps. I can get coffee, which I couldn't do before. I can get coffee if we've got that window in there. I can get coffee real quick.
I mean, are you clearer? I mean, I don't know if I'm overstating looking for.
Well, here's
the benefits.
Here's one thing that I can do. I can, and it's not about maximizing productivity. It's certain things. Like yesterday, I was able to get. It's so funny. 2 newsletters out in these 30-minute windows.
Okay.
So it gives me time sometimes to catch up on little tasks that have been. They're sort of, I need to get this done, or I want to get this done. It's the back of my mind. I did the.
So they aren't breaks. They're works.
No, they're buffers, because I did have like 3 appointments that went over time.
Yes.
So 15 minutes over,
yes.
And one went like 45 minutes over, which happens every now and then.
Wow.
So having the buffer, huge help.
Wait,
Super important.
45 minutes over.
It got into another appointment.
Oh gosh.
And that's just the way, like, here, anytime you're doing counseling, that's just the way sometimes it goes. And that's okay.
You can't just show someone the door.
Well, yeah.
Look at the time here.
Yeah, if they're talking about, I don't know, their dog just died, and you're like, yeah, I'm sorry about your puppy, but you got to run. It's not healthy.
Here's a handkerchief. Here's a napkin, Kleenex for your eyes. Next appointment.
But here it's what now I'm wondering. So I'm very good about taking vacation. I mean, I really am.
Yes.
Multiple times a year. I'm pretty good about taking time off for solitude several times a year. Well, I just go, like 2 weekends ago, I just went to Honeycomb Campground and just had 2 days, 1 night on the lake.
I need to do that.
Sitting, thinking.
I haven't done that in a while.
I was working through my, and I was going to invite you, but I knew you enjoy. We're going somewhere, doing something.
Right.
But just kind of going through my calendar, and it gives you time to pray and think and process in a different setting.
Yes.
So I could do that from home technically, but it's not the same when you're doing it at a campsite out on a lake and you're eating out there. It's just, I don't know. It's just kind of good.
Something about, where possible, getting away from your typical environment, where even you feel certain pulls. There's certain things that call you, just from an environment, a setting you're in, where just getting away from that. Yeah, there's a lot of value. Even there, whether you hear differently, you pay attention differently, you're just the stimulation of a different, I don't know, the environment of being in a different place.
Well, and it's Jesus would take them to different places. They would be ministering in this town, and the crowds are all around them. He'd go, "Come away with me for a while," and he would take them to the lake house. There wasn't actually a house there, but it was the lake. And often, of course, people would follow them there, or literally walk all the way around the lake to get to them. But there is something about place that allows for me a little bit of a reset. So even when I think about meetings that we might be having all the time, sometimes a meeting might be more productive outdoors versus indoors.
Yes.
Just because it's more expansive. Like even in this office, there's a confining part of this because there's no windows in it. It's the one thing I wish I had.
It's a prison cell.
Well, let's not go over the edge with it, Raj. It's not that. I mean, there's not bars up anywhere. Sure, it's paneling, but there's that.
Yeah, we're locked into the 80s, baby.
Well, paneling was before the 80s. I think that was more of a 60s, 70s.
No, we painted it in the 80s.
You're right. We painted it in the 80s. For a while, we were wallpapering over it. Do any of our listeners even know what wallpaper is? Are people still doing that?
I saw some yesterday, and I wasn't in a museum.
Yeah, it was like knitting and butter churning. It's like people that are wallpapering.
Okay.
No, I'm sure there's people that have that specific skill set.
We love our wall hangers, both of you.
Not wall hangers. That's like drywall hanging. That's a whole different thing. Wallpaper hangers is a different thing. And it's not really hanging. It's more like sticking awning. A wallpaper sticker honor. Because as best I can tell, because I could never get it to stick, it's supposed to stick.
You know, I did that for a while.
Wallpaper?
Yes. When I worked on the paint crew, so when I was in college
Yeah.
at our campus,
I knew you learned roofing.
I worked on I started with the paint crew. But the
So
paint crew
painted.
That's where I learned to wallpaper.
And wallpaper.
So we would do now they did a lot of what I would call industrial or commercial wallpaper. So it wasn't these cute pastels and flowers and all whatever. It yeah, I learned. We had the table and how you get there, how you glue things, all those kind of. So I literally learned. So it's one of the things later. So many things, and then eventually I went to the roofing crew. But in that little span, probably a couple of years, I learned painting, and I learned a lot about painting. Yep. I still this day love painting. Quite good at it.
Nope, don't love painting.
Wallpapering.
Nope, don't love.
I haven't done that in a long time, but that opened up. I ended up doing some wallpaper jobs for hire later on in later years. Certainly roofing. I learned roofing, carpentry, and I've done.
And you were I don't know if you remember this story when we first moved into Gleason Drive and Marlena wanted wallpaper in her bathroom there. So I was 20 years old at the time.
Okay.
And I, unbeknownst to me, but it was the most wonderful thing I've ever done.
No.
If you ever mess up wallpaper bad enough, you'll never be asked to do it again. So here's what happened. I did wallpaper in the bathroom, and it was, I'm trying to match the stuff up because this was a complex pattern that Marlena had found. Okay. And I'm trying to match it up where, the little tendrils come together and all that. And I got it,
tendrils
within a half inch. Well, it had these like plants that had little tendrils coming out, and you had to make them meet. Because if you didn't make them meet, it looked like there was a line that you're trying to make it not look like there's a line.
Right.
So I had lines showing up everywhere.
Cross tendrils.
You should have seen what I did back in there underneath the commode where you're trying to get in and you're trying to wallpaper. I just started pasting it on there like Band-Aids because I'm like, no one looks back there. I mean, no one goes to your house, looks under your commode and goes, that's a terrible wallpaper job down there. So I finished it. I was like so proud of myself. Marlena came home, and by the weekend, she had it all back down. Marlena never asked me to do wallpaper again. So I'm like, that was actually super smart.
So we're giving counsel to young married couples.
This is a secret. Okay, so all of you ladies that are listening, 2 of you, whatever, stop for just a minute. This is for guys. If you paint poorly, if you do the kitchen countertop poorly, if you wallpaper poorly, there's a good chance you won't have to do it again.
Break a dish while cleaning them.
Oh, I never thought about that. Multiple dishes.
Oh, no, there's lots of...
How about a priceless Steinway?
Not anymore.
I never thought. That's brilliant, Raj. Load the dishwasher. If you have a miss, hit the floor.
No.
Boom.
You learn some things.
You're out of dishwashing.
Right.
That is brilliant. Have you ever actually
wash
done
the car? Oh, I'll wash the car.
Mow the yard. Leave lines everywhere.
Mow over a few flowers.
Oh, gosh, yes. This is so good. Yeah, I never thought of how far you could take this.
Right. It's just the pastor just trying to be helpful and just
work on the car. Hey, yeah, honey, I accidentally poured sugar in the gas tank. So, yeah, I probably don't need to be working on the car anymore.
I think this is one of those ones that we call shooting yourself in the foot.
Yes.
Oh, let's go buy a new car because Bruce didn't want to fix it. And he thought he would sugar the gas tank.
The mechanic that you take it to goes, there seems to be glucose in the carburetor. I've never seen this before. Yeah.
Every time in Bruce's logic,
our car is diabetic,
down.
as it turns out. Okay, there's the whole problem there. All right, so back to serious things.
When are we okay?
I think we've covered that rest is important. Vacation is good. There's a place for workations.
Learning the value of learning to say no, taking breaks, even mini breaks.
And I mentioned that book, Mark somebody who wrote the book, The Rest of God. Remember him? Wasn't it a Mark?
Well, I don't remember the somebody name, but
Okay.
Mark Batterson?
No, it was another one. The Rest of God. Interesting stuff. But it just talked about that, the importance of rest and Sabbath and those kind of things woven into the rhythms of our life.
Yeah.
Which may be hard for some people to do. I know some people that have literally never taken a vacation, and I realize I can't even wrap my head around that.
Right.
I know a person now, a young man right now, that just took a job working 7 12s. I can't imagine that.
Wow.
I can't imagine 7 days a week without a break. You're working 12 hours, because if you sleep 8 and it takes you an hour to get ready and an hour to wind down and then 30 minutes. I mean, you literally have maybe 1 hour a day.
I mean,
to yourself. I don't even,
no, well, what I think with that is, even for the organization, whether it's requiring that, doesn't that seem obviously dangerous and or
counterproductive?
Counterproductive, literally.
Think about where that word came from. Counterproductive.
Right. You're actually working against, and I think this is what you run into sometimes.
You're working against productivity.
That even God, in calling for Sabbath, even rest, breaks, celebration, feasts, there's this thing about your productivity actually can be more, that you can, relationships can be more, productivity can be more, dare I say profits could be more, if we're, and I think this was even part of what this podcast I listened to, she was just talking about productivity.
Interesting.
Where we end up doing certain things that seem right, they seem helpful, but actually they're working against productivity. They're working against getting.
They're counterproductive.
They're counterproductive. And so we need an alternative voice like this gal and others who are kind of pushing back on a mindset that's go nonstop.
Yeah.
And maybe, maybe there's a field or two where it's nearly impossible not to have those kinds of shifts. I don't know all of that, but
I think right now I think it's related to the worker shortage, which we alluded to last week on the actor shortage.
But at that point, then, are you ending up sacrificing the health of your employees?
Are you willing to say we simply can't turn out those orders?
Right.
You're going to have to wait 4 to 6 weeks on an order,
or
that you might wait a week on.
Or we're going to ultimately take it out of the health of our employees, where we say we're not going to say no to those orders. We're just going to demand more. We're going to have higher quotas. Right. We're going to have longer work hours. And if they keep saying yes, we'll keep pushing that on there. And if the
worker burns out, then you have an even larger worker shortage.
Right.
It becomes this. I realize now that you're saying that, there's a wisdom to even what, like we talked about, what the Chick-fil-A did in Hampton Cove. They just said, well, we're not going to serve breakfast anymore because of the worker shortage. In other words, we could make all of our people work 12 hours a day to cover both the breakfast and the lunch shift, but they're not going to do that.
No, and
I say we're just not going to be able to offer that.
And there's several people I've talked to where, the business model, someone retires, and rather than replace them, we just spread their work out to these other workers, and then someone else retires and they do it again.
And years ago, I'm talking like maybe 50 years ago, the pundits thought that because of technology and those things, the work hours, the average work week would decrease from 40 hours a week to more like 25 hours a week. I mean, can you imagine where that was the norm? A 5-hour day is the norm for a full-time worker, because there's nothing that says 40 hours is that's how much you should work.
God-given.
That's how much you should work every week.
Yes.
That works if you're enjoying your work, like even yesterday, which is my 12-hour day, because I'll work 8 to 8, but it was an enjoyable day. And by the end of the day, I felt good about that. I couldn't do that every day.
Right.
There's only 2 days a week that I do an 8 to 8 shift. But then I have, like Mondays and Fridays where I don't have any appointments.
Yeah.
So I'm free to, I just think there's a lot of health in that. Because some people are like, how do you do an 8 to 8 day? And I'm like, well, if I did it all the time, I couldn't. I mean, if I did that, like even my son who works 5 and 6 12s a week, I don't even know how he does that.
Right.
That is just like, ooh, that seems long. And then I feel like the one day you are taking off, I would be so tired, I would probably just like sleep the whole day or so. I don't know. That's just tough. Hey, so we don't really have time to go into all that. Roger and I did have some time last week. We took 3 or 4 hours last Friday afternoon to do a little bit of reconstruction, because after we had talked last week about not making movement in certain areas, we said, let's have a discussion that might stir movement in some areas. And maybe we'll talk about this next week.
I would think we should, because we could be getting into a whole nother.
Oh, that's a long thing.
No, that would be a fascinating, if you talk about deconstructing church, that would be a fascinating.
Because what we were doing was doing reconstructing church, which was really fun. I was surprised how much I enjoyed that process. So that'll be another Pastords thing down the road. But we have noticed how many people are, it's a buzzword right now, deconstructing their faith, deconstructing the church, often myself included, looking at the church from the outside with sort of a critical eye.
Right.
But not necessarily offering the solution, or not necessarily offering the alternative, not necessarily doing anything about said problem.
It's like,
which becomes unhelpful at every level. Well, not at every level.
It's like one of those home reno shows coming in and they do the demolition and then they leave.
Yeah.
In other words,
can you imagine if they did the before and after picture? Right. This is before, your house looks rough, and now it looks rougher.
Well,
we've got it down to the studs.
But you don't have those 80s cabinets anymore, thank God.
You don't.
You don't have that wallpaper and paneling. So, yeah, it is easy. The deconstruct side,
Roger,
is super.
We could start a reality show called Home Demolition. This is what your house looked like before we came in with sledgehammers. And then we can let the reno shows come in and do their thing.
No, we get
all we do is deconstruct.
Look how much more spacious it feels.
Roger, what if you even took the siding off? So there's literally just the studs and the roof. I mean, and that's it. That's all we leave. And if there's a brick fireplace, we leave that. That's it. That would be so cool. But think about, here's why reconstruction on multiple levels can be so good. If you did that, think about what it would open up about what could be.
Right.
For instance, if the house previously had been wood siding, you might go, hey, I think I'd really like painted brick. Okay. Or stucco.
I can't think you'd ever say, I want painted brick.
Oh, I love painted brick. Do you? Painted brick is just cool.
Well,
I didn't used to love it.
But now I'm thinking about putting up a brand new house. We're going to brick it, and then we're going to paint the brick.
People do it now. Isn't that crazy?
It is crazy.
But think about it. People put wood on it.
You got to draw a line somewhere.
Roger, people put wood on the house, and then what do? They paint it.
Well, that's to protect the wood. You don't have to protect brick.
But brick by in and of itself is not particularly attractive unless, Roger, are there brick makers that are doing green bricks and yellow bricks and blue bricks? How hard can it be to mix a little coloring in there?
I will say, about 6 months ago, I went to a house. It was an estate sale. And I went to this house, and what I loved was a variety of very unique multicolored bricks.
Okay.
In this house. And it was fascinating. It was compelling.
That is interesting.
It was very, very, it's very unique. And some unique colors and so on. It wasn't like pink and blue, but it was.
But back to the church deconstruction.
Okay.
So if you took it down, you've got the foundation. You're not changing that.
Right. Jesus is bedrock foundation.
Right. So, but you're leaving. You've got studs up. But it's easier to say we could move this. Yes. We could change this. We could make this room much more expansive and larger. Even when we did the work on our houses that we bought in 2012 that were built in 1954, the rooms were very boxy. Every room was a box. The first entry room was a box with 2 doors exiting it. So immediately, we opened up those walls so you'd have the living room and the kitchen and a sunroom all.
But you're right. When you take the sheetrock down, you can see more possibilities.
You can see more possibilities.
You have more clarity. You can see better. So, and it's
as
why
it turned out on our house in 2012, I should have taken all the siding off because most of it was rotten, and thus the termite issue and all that stuff.
We learn along the way.
That's interesting. This is good. So reconstruction can be a very good thing.
Absolutely.
Even when we think about the church, because one of the things Roger and I did settle on is the foundation is Christ. So that's the There's no other foundation can a man lay than that which is Christ. And then each person has to determine how to build on it. When you think of that in terms of church reconstruction, that's vast. That's expansive. There's so many ways you can go with that.
And I think that's what God intended. In other words, that the beauty,
there's not one kind of,
when you have this
church.
cornerstone, when you have this foundation, then how you build on it, it's going to take different shapes, not just in different countries, not just in different times, but in different population centers, different
people groups,
people
groups within the same city.
Right. So but the beauty is that you can do that. There's not this just one template for church. And I think it's just part of the genius of God. So yeah, maybe someday we'll talk about where we started thinking about what a reconstruction project might look like for church. It was a refreshing discussion. Yeah, it was a refreshing discussion. So we'll talk about that one day. So today, you looking for a slogan?
Be blessed as you rest.
Don't be a jerk. Stop work.
Instead of a new quest, take a rest. I could have done that. I could have, instead of a quest, take a break. That would have thrown everyone off. That's good. I like that.
Yes.
So, Johnny Quest out.
All right.
I literally don't know where that came from.
I hope it never comes out again.
I know. It slithered away.